former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, Michael Jeffries, Matthew Smith, and James Jacobson. Powerful individuals for too long have trafficked and abused for their own sexual pleasure.
Prosecutors have been investigating allegations that Jeffries ran a sex trafficking operation involving young men. Jeffries was arrested this morning in Florida as part of an investigation led by federal prosecutors in New York.
We hire good-looking people in our stores because good-looking people attract other good-looking people, and we want to market to cool. Now imagine hearing that from a well-known billionaire, but that's not even the most shocking part. This same billionaire was later caught up in a sex trafficking scandal. This story is about Mike Jeffries, a name that's big in today's world. But what crimes did he commit, and why would someone with all that wealth choose such a dark path? Let's dive in and find out. Michael Stanton Jeffries, better known as Mike Jeffries, was born in 1944 in the US. Growing up, he always had a passion for starting his own business, but he knew he needed to master marketing and other skills to make it big. He didn't back down from his dream, even though he knew building $1 billion company would be tough. He kicked things off by getting his MBA from Columbia Business School in 1968. Right after finishing his MBA, Mike Jeffries joined a management training program at Abraham & Straus, a department store in Brooklyn that was part of Federated Department Stores. He spent a solid 12 years there, picking up all the experience he could until he felt ready to chase his dream of starting his own company. But as it turns out, he wasn't prepared for the setbacks waiting around the corner. But before doing that, Mike then moved to Los Angeles, taking on a vice president role in merchandising at Bullock's, another well-known Federated store. And what's more interesting is that Bullock's ended up merging with Macy's in 1993, right where Mike had first started out. After 3 years at Bullock's, he finally decided to take a big leap and start his own company, a move that years down the road would eventually lead to serious allegations of sex trafficking. In 1984, Mike set out to start his own clothing brand, All Cotton Andrews, aimed at career women. But the business ran into trouble, overexpanded, and went bankrupt in 1989. According to some very reliable sources like the New York Times, the store not only just didn't offer enough, but there were also too little variety in its merchandise. Once his startup failed, he had no option but to find another job, which he did by working in merchandising at Paul Harris, a Midwest clothing chain. To your surprise, the company also went bankrupt in early 1991. In 1992, Mike started another company named Abercrombie & Fitch, an American lifestyle brand focused on contemporary clothing. This venture turned out to be a huge success for him, experiencing massive growth throughout the 1990s and 2000s to become one of America's top brands, initially without any major controversies. However, there were rumors about the company's intense and unconventional management style, which turned out to be true. When Abercrombie & Fitch opened a new store in 2012, they hired several male models and had them advertised by wearing only shorts, essentially half naked. This photo exemplifies the shirtless male image that characterized the brand's sexual marketing during Mike's 22-year tenure as CEO and founder of A&F. Without enough money in hand, it became challenging to keep everything clean and growing. And that's where Mike lost it all. During his 22-year tenure, he not only built a successful company, but also accumulated a significant lawsuit against him, which ultimately came back to haunt him in 2023. Reports claim that Mike Jeffries, alongside his partner Matthew Smith, allegedly arranged for young men to attend sex events they hosted worldwide. The iconic, half-naked male imagery used in Jeffries' advertising campaigns, it seems, foreshadowed a troubling reality beneath the brand's glossy surface. From 2009 to 2015, the pair supposedly relied on a middleman to recruit men for these gatherings. The BBC interviewed 8 individuals who had attended the events. Half of them said they felt exploited or misled about the true nature of the gatherings. While some were aware of the events would involve sexual activity, they claimed they hadn't been fully informed of what would be expected. And once in these parties, there was no way out for them. They had to indulge in what they knew was wrong because of the gravity of the situation and probably the fear of Mike if they backed out. Some of the witnesses' accounts also described Jeffries and Smith actively participating in sexual acts with around 4 attendees or instructing others to engage with each other. But this didn't go only Mike's way. Reports suggest that Mike's personal staff, who wore A&F uniforms, supervised these disturbing activities. Once attendees were done, they would hand them envelopes filled with cash, likely thousands of dollars. But was this payment for what they had done or just a way to keep them quiet? That's the question we should all be asking ourselves. But now you might be wondering, where were these parties held and why couldn't anyone stop them? Well, most of these parties took place in Mike's own luxury home in New York. However, some were also held in high-end hotels across various cities, including London, Paris, Venice, and Marrakesh. With enough money, they managed to silence people and erase all evidence. Staff working at Mike's home also reported that, for years, they were asked to leave the premises on Saturday evenings. And you can guess why, because most of the parties took place on weekends. This pattern continued for years, heavily supported by Mike's middleman, James "Jim" Jacobson, who played a major role in Mike's alleged sex trafficking operations. Jim was responsible for scouting attractive young men, sending their photos to Mike, who would then select them and invite them to the parties. Jim even auditioned young men for Mike by requesting sexual favors like oral sex or offering to reciprocate. According to the investigation, these attendees, or what could more accurately be called victims, used to receive payments of $500 or $1,000 for these acts, and if the money didn't lure them in, Mike would promise them modeling opportunities, suggesting that physical contact with him could lead to a spot as a model for his company. David Bradbury, a popular actor, was introduced to Jim in 2010 when he was 23 years old. Bradbury stated that Jim made it very clear, if he wanted to meet Mike or get involved with A&F, he would have to perform oral sex with Jim first. David also recalled it saying, "It was like he was selling fame," he said, and the price was compliance. At an event held at Jeffries Hampton's residence, Bradbury claimed that the former Abercrombie & Fitch CEO pressed poppers, a quick-acting inhalant that delivers an instant high under his nose before initiating sexual activity with him. In the secluded setting of the house, surrounded by Jeffries' staff, Bradbury shared that he didn't feel safe to say no. Another former and famous model, Barrett Paul, also told the BBC that he was pressured by an older model he owed money to into attending one of Jeffries' events. Again, he didn't want to, but felt pressured by the older model. Once there, he felt obligated to perform, eventually engaging in sexual activity with another recruit, while Jeffries and Smith watched with their eyes wide open. He also said that this is what they had been doing with every other model too. They liked watching such acts and then later performed them with some other models. An anonymous man who also attended one of these gatherings shared with Panorama that Jeffries acted as a kingpin. He believed there's a very good possibility he was raped at the event after his champagne was spiked, leading him to pass out in a bathroom. Mike took advantage of people at incredibly vulnerable times in their lives, especially those coming from small towns to these big cities, he said. Under his leadership as CEO, both the company and Jeffries himself became embroiled in several controversies. These included discrimination lawsuits, accusations of poor governance, and the infamous statement by the ex-chief executive that only cool and good-looking people belonged in Abercrombie & Fitch clothes. Once the word spread about his actions, Mike took what he believed was the best course of action for himself. In 2004, he left the firm A&F with a retirement package worth more than $25 million, from which he is still reportedly receiving annual payments. Not to mention that at the time, Mike's net worth was around $300 million, and he was one who transformed Abercrombie & Fitch from a struggling legacy brand into a multi-billion-dollar teen retailer that focused on sex appeal. In 2023, the inevitable occurred in Florida. With enough evidence to start an investigation, the FBI knocked on the doors. Former Abercrombie & Fitch CEO Mike Jeffries and his British partner Matthew Smith were arrested and charged with running a prostitution and international sex trafficking operation. The two men are accused of leveraging their power and influence to exploit young men aspiring to work in the fashion and modeling industries. Millions of dollars were allegedly spent on a large-scale operation designed to traffic and abuse them. During the investigation, numerous individuals came forward to speak out against Mike Jeffries' actions, including the victims themselves. While the exact number is unknown, the indictment cites at least 15 individuals, and prosecutors claim dozens were involved. Though the case is still ongoing, the number of people speaking out against Mike is substantial. This could eventually lead to a solid case that holds him accountable for the wrongdoings he's allegedly committed over the years. While it's still unclear how many years he could face if convicted, we can only hope for the best and wait to see what happens next. And with that, we conclude today's case on Mike Jeffries. Let us know why you do think someone worth millions of dollars would commit such acts despite having wealth to pursue legal ventures. If you enjoyed this video and want to support us, we need your help to hit that subscribe button so that we can hit that number quickly. Until then, take care and goodbye.